back to the Fantasy Rugby Draft podcast. Thanks for downloading and listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson, and today we have a couple of special guests to help you shape your draft for 2018, the South African Conference Review. Very excited. Before I introduce them, though, a few quick pieces of admin. You can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Rug Draft. That's Fantasy RUG Draft. If you have any questions, drop us a mail at support@fantasyrugbydraft.com. We say it every week, but a lot of folks don't like to reveal too much of their strategy before the draft, so this is a good vehicle to get in touch with us and kind of rack our brains for any sleepers or busts or any recommendations or just how you're feeling about the draft. Subscribe on Apple Podcast app, even better, leave us a review, let us know how we're getting on. We're also running a comp for last year's Commissioners of Leagues. Any commissioner who set up their league again and get at least half the same managers go into the draw to win the league complete box set for those league fans out there. And for those that haven't seen the league yet, I implore you to take a look at it or actually create a league, and then hopefully you can win this box set. Plus Manager Pro for everybody in your league and League Pro, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's a pretty huge prize package, so we're pretty stoked about that. Trying to get managers who created leagues from last year to get onto it again. We'll run this year on year, so with different prizes obviously, but if you don't qualify this year, create a league this year so at least you have a chance next year. So I mentioned League Pro. So we launched that on Monday. Very, very exciting. A lot of extensive feedback from our very experienced managers or experienced leagues to try and understand what things they would like to see in drafts and in leagues particularly. And these are the three highest kind of polling functions or features at least that you'd like to see in your league. So the first one is a configurable online draft. At the moment, you cannot do that. It's randomized 2 hours before your draft starts. Now you have the ability to set the draft order, so you can create it any way you want. One of the more common ways is the reverse of the reverse of the league table last year, or last year's results at least. You do it that way, or a little bit more detail. The reverse of last year's order gets to choose which pick they are in this draft, which actually is a little bit better because sometimes it can be better having a 10 and 11 turn than having, say, a number one pick. Other people do it quite randomly and have a lot of fun with it. So we've seen horse races to define the draft order, the Grand National. We've seen Aussie Open finishing places to define the order as well. So depending on what you feel like, that's a hell of a lot of fun. We've been doing this for a while. We use the reverse of the previous year's results, but we are going to introduce something a little bit more fun around something maybe around the Aussie Open or a tournament of choice, shall we say. We'll reveal that a bit later. But so that's the first one, configurable online draft. The configurable conference selection as well is quite important for folks. At the moment, it's randomised when after you finish your draft, it reveals who's in which conference. But that can produce a weak conference. So this is a way to try and allow league commissioners to seed teams in different conferences, so you can seed them from last year's results or the last 5 years' results combined, and make sure, say, that the top 5 or the top 4 are in opposite pools to each other. You can also have some fun with this one as well. But the idea is just so that you don't have this weak conference. And probably one of our more interesting aspects, and one of the gives people more fantasy and also allows people to have a bit of fun on draft day, is the Sacco. So the Sacco being the last place finisher. Now you have a Sacco bracket, as we're calling it. Again, if you've seen the league, you'll know what we're referring to here. And it is the bottom 4 playoff, exactly as the top 4 in the championship bracket playoff, for last place. So now you can actually crown a loser as well. So you can now decide who pays for the draft day spread, or Manager Pro passes, or League Pro itself. You can have a lot of fun with that. So that's all up on the site. Go and have a look. We've got a bit of a competition at the moment. Well, actually, not a competition as such. It's more of a promotion. The first 20 leagues get 20% off. So that's a pretty sweet deal first up. And that, just looking at the numbers now, is running out quite quickly, so you might want to get this before if you're hearing this, the recording's probably going to be going up midday Thursday, so that would have moved on as well. So get into that now. Well worth it. We've been doing it and trialling in our leagues for a while now. Very, very exciting. Right, let's get on to why we're here. We want to discuss the South African squads, so we put the bat signal up again for Brenden Nel from SuperSport. Welcome back, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Always good to be back here.
Excellent. How's your off-season training been?
Well, mine personally, not much, but the teams have been hard at work, so yeah.
Very good, very good. We've also got Craig Lewis from South African Rugby Mag. He's coming on soon as well, so he'll just chime in when we can. We're running a few joint leagues with South Africa Rugby Mag this season, so we've got some awesome prizes. They'll be revealed either today or tomorrow. I've seen a list, or initial list. They look really cracking, so go to sarugbymag.co.za for more details. But make sure you join the leagues themselves that are up on their website. We've seen a number of managers that have registered, but they haven't actually joined the league, so make sure you join the league so you don't miss out on those prizes. Right, really short amount of time. Let's crack into it. Let's start with last year's almosts, the Lions. A lot of change at the Lions and a lot of injuries at the Lions. For fantasy, let's probably start with the injuries, I guess. Who do you think's likely to replace Skosans?
Well, it's interesting now that you guys are talking about him. I was at the Player Awards on Saturday, and Sway's brain tells me that Courtnall might not be the full Super Rugby season, but maybe only 2 months. So 2.5 months. So they're looking sort of April-ish around there to have him back on the field, which for an MCL is quite remarkable if that's the case.
Wow.
Yeah, most guys say 6 to 9 months, but yeah, so if that's the case, that's great news for him and great news for the Lions. They've got a couple of other guys. Lionel Mapu's played on the wing quite a bit, and given the amount of midfielders they have, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him on the wing as such. They've got a very good youngster called Madosh Tambwe. He's a Zimbabwean guy he's been in the country, but he was supposed to be in the SA under-20s last year, but had a problem with his passport. And
remember that? Yep.
He's a very good, fast young guy. Yeah. So he's the one guy I'd say would probably be the other winger. And they've got another guy. Sorry, the pronunciations are going to be quite interesting. Piwe Diante, also another winger that they've got as well, who's not too bad as well. So a bunch of youngsters. They'll probably play Lionel on the one wing, I reckon, and Madosh on the other one till they get the other guys right.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess Skosans been to Naholo's Fijian doctor, has he? Rubbed some leaves on it? Is that how it works?
Well, yeah, I'm not quite sure. They didn't want to go into details on how it happened, but I was quite surprised. I mean, I was just thinking at the run-of-the-mill interview with the coach, and I said to him, that's bad having him gone. And he said, well, he'll be back in 2 months. And I thought, whoa, because most doctors I speak to, and through my history, covering rugby, that those are 6 months at least, and then it depends how good your rehab's been. So for 2.5 months, that's impressive. I'm not sure what exactly is happening there. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I thought I read that it was an ACL, not an MCL. But if it's an MCL, I know those can be cleaned up a little bit quicker than an ACL. So yeah, good news. Yeah. And what about Combrinck, his partner? So how long's he out for? I heard mid-April last.
Well, he'll be back. Yeah, mid-April is what we're hearing as well. We've seen him back at training, but we've been told April. They haven't put specifics on it. The Lions are a bit cagey on these things. They don't really tell us. I mean, with Skosans, they never really gave a date of how long he's out, and they don't seem to do that for some reason. They told us April for Combrinck.
Okay, all right. Third highest average points per game for an outside back, and in the top 5 overall as well. I think he's worth living with until he comes back, because he's got some massive upside there as well. So if when Combrinck is fit, I guess that makes... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, he's a hell of a competitive player, and he's one of those guys, something always happens when he's on the field, so he's always good for that, I reckon, as well.
And he's country tough as well, isn't he? He's a farmer, from what I can tell from his Instagram.
Yeah, he's got a couple of bulls and cows that he's stud farming. So yeah, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but he's one of those guys. He's a tough build.
Yeah, he looks a bit that way. So when he's fit, do we think, so if Mapo is probably going to go on to that right wing, then this midfield should be fairly straightforward with Van Rensburg and Forster?
Well, yeah, and Howard Manisi's also back. He's played his first game back. Yeah, I mean, they're all talented. I suppose it would depend on the opposition that they're going to play, but I would expect Ruan would be one of the two there, and they probably alternate the other two during the season. But they're both. I mean, they've got different strengths. Howard runs amazing. Harold runs amazing lines. Howard's got amazing footwork as well. So it depends who they're playing. But I think Ruan would be the anchor in the midfield there.
Yeah, tough break for him when he got injured last season, but from all accounts, watching a little bit of Sale Rugby, it looks like he's found a bit of form. It took him a while up there in Manchester, but it looks like he's actually started to enjoy himself and play good rugby. But he's back in the squad now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's back in Joburg. I saw him on Saturday. He's also one of those guys. I don't know. I rate him. I've watched him since schoolboy days. He's incredibly tough to bring down, and he makes the meters in the midfield. But he's not every coach's cup of tea. Some guys prefer more of a playmaker at 12. So, but I enjoy him. And I think he's got a big year. He's got offers on the table here from Sale. So, we might lose him after Super Rugby. But I'm hoping that's not.
A little bit further south as well, I hear. Somewhere around Gloucester way might be on the cards at some point as well, I imagine. Well,
yeah. I think that anybody from the Lions is being linked to Ackerman at the moment, so I can understand that you play with players, and you can understand the players enjoying some coach, that if they can play with them and make more money, you can understand that happening. But we've got enough players overseas at the moment, to be very honest.
Yeah, that's pretty true. Very true. I mean, it doesn't surprise me when players drop off Van Rensburg. I mean, there's no way you can actually loop your arms around both those quads. You maybe get it around one of the quad, but I'm not sure you could get it around both the quads.
Yeah, it's a strange. He reminds me a bit of David Smith in a way, because I mean he's not the biggest guy as such when you meet him in person, but he's got an incredible leg drive, and he's difficult to bring down. He's got a massive amount of power in his legs as well. So I've seen bigger midfielders, but he's got something special about him. So
I guess the Lions are okay in respect of having a non-ball playing 12, because Cronje plays a little bit off the base, and Yankees obviously plays quite well as well at 10, directs it around. So having that 12 that's a bit more direct it works okay.
Yeah, and what they'll probably do as well, both Nkosi and Forster can slot in at 12 as well. They both play 12. So you might see them in the game swapping around like that when they're on attack and when they need something a bit different. So, but yeah, Nkosi to me, Forster to me runs amazing lines. That guy scores a lot of tries from running beautiful lines. So I reckon he's going to do quite a few more this season as well.
Yeah, we like Forster. Tall guy, languid, good running style, as you say, that line.
Yeah, he hits those lines beautifully. And when the line is on form and they get him into those positions, there's going to be a lot of tries. Let's hope that happens this season, because they're going to need it. So. Yeah,
indeed. So one spot in, there's not too many questions around Yankees, but I guess who is backing up Yankees as a backup 10?
There's a youngster by the name of Sean Reynolds. He's around there. Good young player, very different to Young. He's a bit taller, a bit more direct, 10 as such. But, I think probably what happen is you probably see, Andres Kutsia come from fullback, and he might come slot into 10 if that happens. Sean Reynolds is the official backup 10 as such.
Does Kutsia kick goals?
Yeah, he does as well. And he's played 10 in the junior leagues and stuff as well. So he can slot in. He's obviously a bit more comfortable at 15, but they have that option if it's necessary. So.
All right, read what you went into that. Fantasy Rugby Draft Managers, good info. Halfback, is it Ross Cronje? Is this anyone coming through?
Yes, there's a very good youngster coming through. How much game time he's going to get is going to be interesting, but Marco Janse van Vieren, I think is his name. Van Vieren, Van Rensburg, it's one of the two. I think it's Van Vieren. He's a good SA 20 players, as such as well. You'll see him as a very physical halfback. The first thing you're going to see, if you see him on the field, is going to remind you of Joost van der Westhuizen, and very much the same playing style. Lanky player, very physical, very in your face, and And that's the first thing I picked up. And I was chatting to the Lions recruitment guys on Saturday, and they were saying this guy's probably the closest thing they've seen to Houston in the last 10 years. So, he's the guy. I think maybe not this year. It depends on how much game time he gets. But if he's in, he's gonna go up the ranks quite fast. And I reckon he'll probably be back in 2-3 years' time. It's a bold statement to make. That's obviously if everything happens the right way. But he's really impressed me in the Currie Cup last year, and I think he's one of the guys to have a look for this year.
That's interesting because, I mean, no disrespect to the Box and the guys that they had there with Faf, Page and Cronje, the halfback has been a little bit of a weakness for the Box for the last few years, but it looks like there's a couple of young guys, if Marco's there, but also someone at the Bulls that we'll get onto as well, so it's very interesting. Loose forward makeup. So Jaco Kriel, number 1 average points per game by 2.5 points, which is huge for a loose forward, which is why he's so highly ranked for us. He's back when?
He should be back before the end of February, so before the tour, and probably about week 3 or 4 of the season. So I reckon he's worth putting in pretty early. If I was you guys, he's an exceptional player if he keeps fit. Obviously he's had a couple of injuries in the last couple of seasons, but if he keeps fit, he's definitely worth having in a fantasy draft anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. We love him. Jaco doesn't seem to want to go to the ground anytime soon when he gets the ball. It doesn't seem like he's the biggest kind of specimen, but he's just maybe very similar to Van Reens, but his leg drive and people just drop off him.
Yeah, and he loves being out on the outside as well. You find him in the back line all the time.
Being a nuisance to the backs, no doubt. Warren Whiteley, captain?
Yeah, Warren will be captain. I don't think anything's going to change there. He's looking fine. He's had a couple of games. He was lucky not for the Japanese side he was playing for, but he managed to get 3 games there. Which helps in sort of his return to Super Rugby. Although when they signed him last season, he was away with the Box, and this season he's been injured and he played only 3 games for them. So it wasn't the best investment for the Japanese side, but from a Lions point of view, they're happy to have him back and having already played a couple of games. So, I think he'll be captain and he'll have a run through as long as he doesn't get injured, because he's also had a couple over the years.
So those 2 spots are fairly nailed down. Who is going to take the other spot? I guess the 2 players, are in the mix are Kwagga Smith and is it Combrinck?
Yeah, Carl's a bit more your traditional sort of 7 and he's 7-8. He can play there, and I think depending on the opposition, the way they want to go. But I think Kwagga at the moment, after the season he had last season, the 7's form he's in at the moment, and the game against the Barbarians for the Barbarians against the All Blacks last year, I think he's a crowd favourite anyway, and he's a hell of a hard worker. So I could see them playing the 2 open siders there. Again, it would probably depend on the opposition, but if he's not there, he'll be on the bench and he'll be on the field quite early, I reckon.
Yeah, his average points per game, if you look at it on the site, is a little bit misleading because he spent a lot of the first half of last season as a replacement, so that dragged his average down. But if you look at his average points per minute, which is what we have access to, it's far and away the highest out of all the loose forwards, even ahead of Jaco Kriel. He was immense. I guess the one little asterisk for Kwagga Smith, and I don't know if we know this yet, but the Blitzbokkers in the Commonwealth Games, him and perhaps Sinatla there and thereabouts with the squad, have they made a decision around whether they're going or not, or when do we know that decision?
No, they're still negotiating, but when I spoke to Kwagga, and that was, I must say, the Cape Town Sevens, he said to me, he's worked it out that the 2 weeks he'd be away from Commenwealth, the Lions are in New Zealand in the 1 week, and the week before that they've got to bye. So he didn't think it was going to have too much of an impact on his season as such. So he said he reckons be able to do it quite easily. But it would mean that he'd probably have to fly straight from going straight to New Zealand. Okay. So there's those sort of aspects. I think the Lions will probably let him go, given the other loosies that they have and the other players they have. I think they can do without him for a week or 2. So I think we might see him go to the Commonwealth Games.
Cool. No, that's good info, and you're right. That one of the interesting ones, that bye, and then secondly against the New Zealand team as well. So even if He's not playing the Sunwolves, so even if you did have him for that week, there's a chance if you're playing against the New Zealand team away in the middle of winter, then not as great anyway. Front row. So the average points per game last season was 150% higher than the team in second, which is just ridiculous. It's a probably one that can't be matched, but we've still put them as our number one front row. How much of a loss is the Warthog, and what's the talent like coming through?
Well, yeah. It's an interesting one. Look, I mean, they're always going to have Malcolm Marx is going to play at least 60 in every game. So, he's one of those marquee players that's going to be in every single game that they can play him. And, they're using, what's his name? Connie, I'm missing the guy's name now, but the prop, the blonde-haired prop, babyface prop that they had. He's going to be backing up a hooker as well this season for them. But they have lost that impact, definitely. Aka van der Merwe gave them an amazing impact in that second half, and they've lost him. So that's going to be a question mark, whether they can replace that sort of impact in that second half. But, Marks will be there definitely for 60, and I'd say he'd be in any fantasy team I'd have at any stage, just the way he plays. They've also lost, Julian Ringhayes didn't really play much for them last season, but he's now retired as well, so they've lost a tight head as well. But they've got enough talent there, I reckon, they'd be alright. Guy I've been quite impressed with is, Jacques van Rooyen, the Lucid, his nickname is Polisieman in Afrikaans, policeman. He comes from the police club, and he's one of those real battlers that's come through club rugby, and it didn't come through the traditional sort of drafting systems that you find, and he's battled his way into the Super Rugby squad, and he's a tough bugger, and he's I reckon he's going to be, the scrum's going to be strong at least, and he's the type of guy who could surprise a couple of people. He doesn't look mobile at all, but every now and again he sort of surprises you with a good run there. So yeah,
nice. So Dreyer, is he gone or injured? What's the story with him?
He's there as well, but he didn't have the greatest last season. I think the step up to Test rugby wasn't great for him. He's a good kid. I mean, he's obviously just wrong place, wrong time, wrong sort of team. He didn't have the greatest start there. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back. Obviously, the Lions is a much more comfortable environment for him than Test rugby, so he should be alright. But, I think that's sort of his level, Super Rugby as such.
Yeah, it was quite a high profile, wasn't it? The poor guy, it seemed to be, it's one of those situations, I think, when you're a prop, that once the ref sees something and the crowd gets on you and you get a bit of a reputation, that it's very hard to shake off, because it's pretty much a dark art in there at the front row. And everyone's just guessing what they think they're knowing, and he seemed to be one of those that just had a very bad trot.
Yeah, he sort of picked up the reputation there, and it just sort of followed him around. And you got to feel for the guy, because he is a good hard worker, and he wouldn't have made it to Test level if he didn't have something. But he just had a very bad run. So how he's going to come back from that, that's going to be interesting to see. But I think he'll definitely be starting at the Lions, and I think we'll see quite a bit of him in Super Rugby. Anything
more from the Lions? Any more players, injuries, or kind of bolters that we want to talk about?
I'm trying to think now. You mentioned it. The halfback Marco is the one guy I definitely thought we were going to see a lot more of this year.
That's good. We can move on to the Sharks. We've got a lot of questions on them.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be in Polokwane with the opening Super Rugby game as such. Not the happiest of camps I picked up. That's the one concern I've got there. There seems to be a bit of problems in the camp as such, which might manifest itself on the field and it might not. You never know these things, but I picked up there was a bit of unhappiness there. So.
Okay, interesting. That's at the Sharks or the Lions? Oh, sorry, I missed that.
The Sharks.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, let's start at 15 actually. So let's go fullback. Options, I guess, Mvovo, Bosch, and April. I think the conventional wisdom or one that we've based our rankings off was Bosch would go to 15. Do you share that view?
I think it probably will, but you'll probably find it changing during the season. They played, when I was at the preseason, they played Bosch at 10. And it seemed to be part of the thinking that he's going to play a lot more 10 this season. Depending on where they come, I think once if Rob Dupree is in good form, I think he'll probably be their starting 10. But you can see them alternating. I think you'll probably see Bosch more at 15, and Rob Dupree at 10. But I wouldn't discount them swapping them in certain games this year.
It's been Mvova at 15, and he finished the year at 15 as well, didn't he, last year against the Sunwolves and a few others?
Yeah. He played in the preseason at 15 as well, and he seems to have a bit of a new lease of life as well. He's the type of player that, depending on when in the season and how it's going, he tends to go off the boil every now and again. But he's still got that great gas, and his nickname is Vroom Vroom because of his speed. And I like him a lot. He's a great player, but he just tends every now and again just to go off the boil when you expect him to kick on. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a bit tough for fantasy rugby draft bankers managers to bank on him. However, I think because he's so lowly down and lowly rated, I think he's worth a decent roll of the dice to see if potentially he actually is that Sharks 15. You don't have to pay much for him. He could be a middle to last late round pick, so I think it's probably not a bad roll of the dice on the off chance that he might actually solidify that 15. In one, or in a two, I guess. Sorry, go mate.
Yeah, I was going to say he tends to score quite a few tries as well, and he tends when he's in that form, he tends to get on the score sheet quite a bit. So he pick up quite a few points there, and I think especially from 15, it gives him a bit more place to run. So yeah, I think they're a top horse there to pick there as well.
Wing position is probably the hardest that we've had to dissect. How does Dupree fit Nkosi, Mapimpi, Van Fake, and I guess Zas is already there is there as well. They signed him as well. How does he fit them in?
Yeah, just asterisks on Zas. I've heard some stories about his injury not recovering in time. I'm not sure how true they are. I'm not in Durban, but I've heard some stories that he's struggling a bit with his recovery. So I'd probably see him later on in the season. He's got a lot of wheels, but I'm not sure the move was the best one for him.
Strange one,
especially in that environment. Yeah, I also thought so because he was getting along quite well in the Cape, and then he had that injury. And it's one of those injuries where the guys tell me you lose quite a bit of speed when you come back. So I'm a bit worried about that for him. I'm hoping he proves me wrong because he was a great young talent. But I'd say probably to me, I'd say Mapimpi would take. He's played in both the preseason games so far, and he's just he's one of these freaks. I mean, if you look at his stats, he was in the top 5 try scorers in Super Rugby last season for the Kings. He's currently the top try scorer in the Pro 14. And he scored in both preseason games as well. He scored 2 against the Bulls and he scored 1 against Racing. So I mean, he's a try scoring machine, and he's just one of those finishers. Everyone keeps on telling me that he's got a bit of a defensive problem, all the coaches, but I haven't seen it yet. And I mean, he's played now 2 seasons. I've been watching him. Every coach is hiding it very well, and oppositions haven't worked it out. But on attack, he is phenomenal. And he's one of those guys he tends to break tackles, and he scores a lot of tries. I mean, he scored 10 tries in 11 games in the Pro 14. So, yeah, I reckon he's a good bet there to pick up quite a few points. And of course, he's rated extremely highly in South Africa. I mean, he was on the Bok tour last year. He's a big, strong young lad as well, and he's got wheels as well. So I reckon if he gets the same sort of start that he did last year, you'll be seeing a lot of him as well. Kobus van Wyk, you see, there's another thing there as well, the asterisks, I'd say, with the pressure, obviously, to play a lot more black players in our rugby as such. So some of your listeners might not understand that pressure, the transformation pressure, that there's always a bit of pressure to try and play those guys. If there's 2 guys at the same level, you play the black player as such ahead of them. And so Kobus van Dijk might miss out in a couple of games, although he's a big, strong lad and he scores a lot of tries. So yeah, they probably swap them in and out all the time, but I could see Mapimpi and Nkosi being the 2 main wings this season.
Nkosi had a brilliant finish last season. He came on really strong. He went on the Bok tour, didn't he? Did he not? No, he was junior. Was he young? He went on the Bok tour, but he didn't get a chance to play. And he's seen as one of the future Boks as well. So they're grooming him for high honours. But he probably needs a little bit of refining and a little bit of
just getting some aspects of his game a bit better. Under the high ball, I know they're worried a bit about him there, but I mean, those are things you can coach.
Yeah,
and if they get that right.
He seems like, and maybe this is going to sound condescending, and I don't mean it to be, it's supposed to be a compliment, but he seems a bit more like an All Black winger. So, gone are the days of the Peter Rousseau type, it's Nkosi.
Well, he's very much more so the winger we see in Super Rugby. I mean, he's stronger, bigger leg drive, bigger thighs. He's one of those guys. We see, you see a lot of them from the guys, sort of heritage, the Pacific guys, that come into Super Rugby, and I think he's more along those lines, build of player, than he is of the tall, lanky wingers that we've had in the past.
Yeah, I think one point you've raised there actually is one we hadn't considered, and I think it probably has quite a big contributing factor on who is going to play on that outside back, and it is around those quotas. I think that's a great thing to pull out. I guess Am's probably going to be the 13. We can't really argue with that. He had a stellar season last year. Yeah,
I think he's going to be playing quite a bit. I see him a lot in that role. When you speak to players, I know one of the Storms players was saying to me the other day that he's one of the guys they always watch for. And to me, that's a comment you get if other players watch you in a game. That tells you how good they are. So I reckon he might be 12, might be 13 during the season, but probably 13. And I think you could see him a lot in that role as well.
Yeah, he's probably one of the more consistent performers in midfield. Esterhausen, is he still in Japan? I heard he was before the Racing game, but I'm not sure that's still the case.
Yeah, he was. I'm not sure if he's got an injury at the moment. We haven't seen much of him. He hasn't been involved in the preseason too much, but he's on their list, on their squad list. So yeah, I reckon he'd probably be 12. He's a strange player. He's obviously big and strong, and the guys like him for the power he brings at 12. But he's not my favourite player, to be very honest. I think he's a bit limited in what he can do. But he does tend, when he's on a roll, he tends to get a lot of go forward and over the advantage line. So I can see them using him there. The other guy I think we might come into a little bit more is Jeremy Ward.
Sure.
SA Schools captain. SA under 20 captain. He very, very more the playmaker 12, and they used him quite a bit in Currie Cup last year, so I think he might come through depending on some games. Hopefully, I like him a lot more. He's more my type of 12 to see, so I reckon him and Am linked up extremely well in the Currie Cup. So I think we might see them together quite a bit this season as well, depending on who they're playing and depending obviously what they want to do. So.
Okay. And Ward's fit because I saw Marius Lowe played against Racing and probably got the headlines because he scored a couple of tries.
Yeah, he also, now you mentioned him, he scored a try in Polokwane as well against the Bulls as well. So he's had a very good preseason. So he'll come into the reckoning as well. So okay. I'm not quite sure he's that good or if it's just preseason that they give the guys a chance, but he's definitely made an impression, so you might see him as well.
So I think we've discussed fly half. We can probably skip over that. I think we said we're going to give Bob every chance to be his 10 and Bosch likely backing him up. Loose forwards, all of the Duprees, I'm guessing. So what is a group of Duprees called in South Africa? Is it a business of Duprees?
It's a good question. There's actually a bit of a joke. There's a bit of a joke going around there where when you talk about the problems in the Sharks, one of the players said to me the other day, Robert coaches his sons, and if he has time, the rest of the team. So that might be a problem for them as such going on. I know on the coaching side, just to say they've brought in Dick Muir again, and it's because Robert's quite a feisty coach. He's not everybody's cup of tea. Let's put it that way. So they brought in Dick, who's obviously a Sharks legend, and he plays a lot more open brand style of rugby, and so you might see that coming into their play a lot more. But the Duprees, I'd say, would start. But they've got a bunch of loose for them. They've got Terry Mtembu, they've got Philip van der Walt. They got a bunch of really hard, good loose forwards. So any combination of those, you're going to get a good combo out of them, I reckon. So Philip van der Walt is one of the most underrated players, I believe. He's a guy whose stats are always up there. I don't think he's quite good enough for test level, but is one of those real battlers in Super Rugby that I think would do any team well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for fantasy, Jean-Luc seemed to be the scorer last year, looking at average points. The season before that, it actually was Dan that was doing a little bit better, but that was more on him starting a little bit more. Jean-Luc came on last year, so yeah, I think if you're aiming for those two, you probably do all right later rounds, trying to find that other shark spot. I think you can just rotate in and out depending on who's starting between Tembu, Walton, probably another couple as well, as Brenden mentions. Front row, so big boost, big signing, getting the Warthog coming in, Akka. But by the same hand, it's a pretty significant blow, especially for fantasy owners, because he was a big ball carrier as Kuni Osterhausen. Is that as big a fantasy blow as I think it is?
I think it is. I think Kuni's one of those guys who's always involved in the game. He's always involved in play. And his injury is going to be out for quite a while as far as I know. They moved Thomas du Toit to tight end, and that was on the national team's request. So he's going to be playing tight end. I mean, he is last year when he joined the box on that end of year tour, he came in as the heaviest front row forward ever to play for the box. So he's a big piece of meat, and if you can get the tight end, it's not easy, and if you can get it under wraps, you could see him going up to the box eventually with that. So he's going to get a good run at tight end, I reckon. And obviously the beast will be at loose head. And so they've got a very good front row coming up there. So.
Yeah, that name has been bandied about for a while now. I've heard plenty of folks in your part of the world mention big things about him. Look forward to seeing a bit more of him. Any more on the Sharks? Halfback, still, who are we going for there?
Well, they've got a bit of a problem. They picked up a big injury in the preseason game against the Bulls with Louis Schroeder injuring his hamstring. I think, and we spoke to them the night after the game, and they weren't quite sure. And a hamstring is always a difficult one to put a time on because you never quite know. But how long he's going to be out for is going to be a huge consideration for him because he really came on last season. He's got a great box kick. He's already a good scrum off, and I think if he's out, they're going to struggle a bit. Cameron Wright, guy played in his place, played very well in the preseason games, but he's a youngster, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And they've also got Michael Claassen as the veteran as well, as such. But I'd say those two will probably stand in. But yeah, to me, Schroeder's a huge blow because he's very much. I won't put him in the same league, but very much in the mold of Farid Dupré, the type of halfback, and I think he really had a great season last season, and I was looking forward to seeing what he could do this year as well.
Yeah, so were we. We were pretty pumped. We had him quite highly ranked there. Gutting injury for him. Played well for the Kings last year. Was one of the top point scorers, halfback, average points per game as well. Very good player. Let's move on to the Bulls, I guess. There's a sense of optimism. I'm not too sure if you share that or not, Brenden, but I know there's a few folks that are pretty excited about John Mitchell and what he seems to be doing. I know from history John Mitchell's a little bit like an Eddie Jones coach in that he's good coming in for a few years and then ducking off somewhere else. Not sure longevity is his thing, but he looks like he's starting to get the team playing and getting the supporters behind him. Is that the general feeling?
Yeah, I think so. I think given the situation the Bulls have been in, I mean, they haven't really featured since, the glory days of 2009-2010. And, the last 2-3 seasons, they've really, underperformed given the players they had. And, there was, and Currie Cup as well. I mean, a team like the Bulls are pretty much like a team like the Crusaders. When they go 7 years without a title, people start getting itchy around you, and that's really the case at the moment. They haven't won a Currie Cup, they haven't won a Super Rugby, they haven't won anything else. So, there's a lot of irritation around you that they haven't been able to achieve that success. There's a number of factors, and I don't think we've got enough time yet to discuss them. But since Mitch has been, Mitch has been there, they're looking a lot more structured, given that, and they're playing with a lot more direction, and you can see a clear intent in the way they want to play. He's a stickler for structure, and he's a stickler for doing things the way he wants to do them. And at the moment, I don't think it's a bad thing for the Bulls. I think it's probably what they need. Things got a bit, sort of too loose and too, unstructured around there, and the squad needs a bit of discipline now, and it needs a bit of, Mitch's brand of rugby, and I know every interview we've done this year, every player mentions how tough the preseason's been. And Mitch has been quite adamant about that. He set standards for them physically. And if they don't meet that standard, no matter whether they're Springbok or whether they're, just a squad player, they won't make the squad. So, he's quite a tough guy, and we'll see how it goes. I don't think quite they've got the talent in their squad just yet to challenge for a title, but I think we should see a better showing from them this year. They've got a bit of a tough draw there. They got a bye in the first round, and then they hit the Hurricanes in round 2, which is perhaps not the best start you want, but for that team. But it's certainly going to test them.
It seems, let's get into that talent. So it seems every year we have the same question, right? Is Jesse Kriel going to play 13 and Warwick Gelant 15? What's the story there? What's the latest play there?
Yeah, well, Jesse's going to, they're having in their preseason this weekend, we're going to probably see, I was at the training yesterday, and we're going to probably see the stronger team play this weekend, against the Jaguars in a preseason game. Jesse will play 13, and that's where, as far as I understand, that's where they're looking at him for the season. I personally believe he's more of a 15, but I can understand with the resources they have that, he's definitely probably more valuable to them at the moment at 13. Warwick's going to get an extended run at 15, and that's good because, I mean, he's one of those special players that you really want to give some space from the back, and he scores a ton of tries, and he's really a guy I reckon is going to have a breakthrough season this year, a proper one, in Super Rugby.
Yeah, we love us some Warwick Gelant. Big fans. Great footwork and sneaky speed as well, just that first kind of 5-10 yards. And I read an article about Mitchell talking about Gelant, and he sees a lot of 13 in Warwick Gelant. And a lot of fans, I think, got a little bit up in arms saying, well, all of a sudden Gelant's going to be playing 13. But I think he was just kind of praising him a little bit around his vision and how he can see things, and not actually suggesting he was going to play 13.
Well, no, I don't think that's a long-term plan for him. I think most coaches, there comes times in seasons where you get hit by 2 or 3 quick injuries, and then you got to look at the next guy in the squad, or with it, moving a guy out of position. And Warwick's one of those guys. I've seen him play 13. I've seen him play 12 at junior levels. He can play anywhere in the backline. He's one of those special players. It's just, if you use him right, he's going to be anywhere in the backline for you. So I can see that happening.
Sure.
I'd like to see settle in 15 because I think that's where his Springbok future is. So, in a crisis, I can see it happening quite easily. So
you've got a few injuries in the Bulls now. So I think there's a few things going on with Ulengo. Not too sure exactly what's happening there, but I think did I read an article that Ismaiel's picked up a problem now too?
Yeah, well, he just took a knock in the preseason. He's under the HIA.
Okay.
Or HIU, whatever they call it, the concussion stuff. So he should be back in a couple of weeks. He didn't have concussion, but he picked it up sort of in training a couple of days later. So I think they're just putting him in cotton wool till the start of the season. But he should be there. He should be the one winger. Jumbo Ulengo, that's a tough one. I'm sure you guys have read the articles. He's going off to Switzerland next week to see this guru doctor that helps these knee injury guys, and the Bulls are a bit desperate at the moment because he hasn't recovered from his injury since August, and the treatment they've been giving him hasn't helped at all. So they're a bit desperate at the moment. They say if he doesn't get this right, it's a career-threatening injury, and so they're trying everything at the moment. And it's quite for a team like the Bulls who are pretty conservative normally in their thinking. I think that's one of the things that Mitch has brought in with him is that. Jumbo is probably their number one winger, and they want him in the season. So if it means they have to fly to Switzerland to see this doctor and get things right, then that's the way they do it. I don't think it would have happened before Mitch was there, so I think it's quite an interesting development. But obviously hoping for Jumbo that he comes through that and comes back. And I read a couple of the articles of this doctor before with Stephen Hoyles. He got his injury right within weeks, where they thought he was going to retire. So I'm not quite sure. I don't believe in miracle workers, but I'm sure there is something in it, and hopefully it helps with Jumbo out.
Is that the same doctor that Robin van Persie went to all those times ago with the horse placenta or something like that? The kind of, I think that might have been a hamstring, not a knee, but yeah, pretty crazy stuff going on in Switzerland.
I'm not sure, but if it gets him right, I think South Africans won't mind, and I think most of your listeners won't mind.
But I guess Mitchell is a little bit lucky that he doesn't have to make the choice as well with Ulengo out, because Duncan Matthews was incredible at the end of last season. He was actually the third highest overall average points per game for fantasy rugby draft, and he just looked rapid. He made every post a winner.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, and I feel because he's one of the nicest players you ever meet as well. He's one of those blokes who always stops when he walks by in the training field and say hello. And he had a horror run of injuries. If you go through his history with injuries, he's probably had 13 or 14 operations in the last 5 years. And that's hampered him every single time. Incredible talent. Very deceiving because he's a small guy. He's not a big guy, and the way he beats defenses, it always makes me do a double take. Just how did this guy do it? But if he wasn't injured, I think he'd be a regular at Super Rugby level a long time ago. And that's the big worry with him, is just injuries. If he's gonna come through injury free, I think he'll challenge the other two wingers. But I don't know. I think there's a question mark about that as well, because when he's in form, he's great, but he does tend to pick up injuries. So.
Moving in, let's go into the midfield. So I think we're going to say Jesse Kriel. Are we going to say Burger Odendale at 12?
Yeah, he's the team captain, which raised a few eyebrows.
Is he?
I must admit that. Him and Nick de Jager have been named co-captains by Mitch, which is interesting because there are a few other options in both positions, and you would have thought with the likes of a Andre Pollard or somebody like that there might have been somebody else who came into play. But I think the one thing we've seen with Mitch, and it's going to sound very simplistic, I think both of them are Pretoria is a very Afrikaans town,
right.
And both of them are extremely good in English. So I sort of wonder if that doesn't play a huge role in it as well. And Mitch being English, obviously, and that he likes a captain that can communicate well with him. So Burger's there, and I think with Jan Serfontein gone, Burger is the number 112 at the moment. So he is the guy who's going to lead the team and be in that 12th position.
Okay, Pollard, you mentioned him. His kicking wasn't exactly up to par at the end of last season. He's fit though, right? I think you mentioned it earlier that they're bringing the big guns back for this preseason game.
Yeah, he's in this game. And look, in the preseason, Mitch has also said this week that because they got that start against the Hurricanes, that they can't afford to go in underdone. So while everybody else is putting their boxing cotton wool, he wants his guys to, his words were, get as much game day stress as possible. So that they in that situation when they hit the Hurricanes as such. So they're having a squad, what they call around here, Copper Stump, a squad game. The two squads will play against each other, and those are usually quite interesting to watch. The guys vie for position. So the week before that game against the Hurricanes, so they're definitely looking to up the pressure and the ante in there. But Andre should be number one. I think there's been a bit of I've been a bit frustrated with the way he's been handled because he's such a marquee player. They've tended to rush him back as well, and. Yeah, especially with the Springboks, he went back to the box without playing a game and then struggled in his first game and things like that. And unfortunately in South Africa we tend to write off players very quickly and very easily. I've watched him since junior level, since school level. I'm a big Andre Pollard fan. I think he's the type of player when he's in form that will scare the All Blacks. And there's not many players that you could say that about. So he needs to get back in form and he needs to prove himself again. And I'm hoping that if he stays injury free, this will be the season that he does that.
Yep, agreed. Pollard can certainly put it on the field, and you're right. He is one of those players that's he's a generational type talent. Just wish he could stay fit. I think one of the more valuable signings from the Bulls and from the last few seasons, there's just been such a chasm between Pollard and the next person. This season they've got Boshoff, so that's probably the most valuable backup from fantasy rugby draft. If you've got Pollard, he's worth a handcuff because he'll put up similar points at the same time. He's a very good player. Yeah, look, I mean,
he is. I mean, he played for the Springboks as well, and he's one of those players who's maybe on attack in terms of a running game is maybe a bit limited. He's more a classical 10. I think more you can control the game with a boot up 10, and but he's deadly to the posts, and he'll put up a lot of points for the Bulls. So he's a banker. Yeah, to me, he's a banker with that. He's always going to be in the squad as well, and he's that type of talent as well. But yeah, I'd see them interchanging the two, especially with Pollard being on the Bok regime. They have to rest him a couple of games in the season anyway. And there's a third guy who might be given injuries, and I'm not sure how much game time he's going to get, but he's also a very, very good young talent. He's been playing 10 in the preseason games. Mani Lebok. When we come to the halfbacks, him and Ambrose Papier, the halfback, they're the SA under 20 halfback combination with Kerwin Bosch. Those are the three players around there. And big, strong young lad, kicks a ball a mile. I mean, I was watching him the other day, slot in his kicking practice, slot goals from 50, 55 meters easy. And so he's a big, young, strong lad as well. Maybe he's now 21, so he's maybe a bit young for this year, but you never know with injuries. And he's at 10 and 15, so depending on where they need him, he'll definitely be in the mix as such. He'll be on the fringes there, so if they pick up an injury or two, he'll come in during the season.
Interesting. Okay, good shout. You mentioned Ambrose, and I missed the pronunciation. Is it Papier?
Papier, yeah. Well, Afrikaans is papier, so yeah,
Papier.
But yeah.
Okay, so they've done I think Mitchell's done the classic, I want to stamp my stamp on the team and make a executive choice, and poor old Rudy Page got between the crosshairs of that. Is that purely because he sees Ambrose as the next thing, or is there a couple of guys?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that happen there. One, Ambrose has been there for 2-3 seasons as a junior now. He's above SA under 20 now. So if the time to bring him into Super Rugby squad, and he's so highly rated, everybody says this is the next Springbok, and there's a lot of hype around him as well. If there's a time, now's the time to bring him in. And I think the other thing, there's a bit of history with Rudy and John Mitchell, though nobody's ever confirmed it. Rudy was at the line when Mitch was there and left the Lions for the Bulls, and never spoke about why, but there's always been rumors about they don't get along. Okay. And now when Mitch comes in, they leave him out. So it sort of fuels those rumors, whether it's true or not. It sort of fuels those rumors as well. So I feel for him because I think Rudy's one of the players that tends to get a raw deal over the years. He's a decent, good player, and has sometimes been tagged as a quota player where he shouldn't be, and hasn't maybe got the amount of Bok game time that he's probably deserved either. So I'm hoping he finds another team. I'm hoping he finds somewhere to go. But he's one of those characters. He's infectious. He's always laughing. He's always making jokes. He's one of those guys. He's a great team man. Mitch has got a history of doing that. I mean, he was the guy who dropped Christian Cullen, dropped Jonah Lomu, and Tane Randall, the All Blacks. So he likes to stamp his authority, and that can be good and can be bad. I suppose time will tell. But I felt a bit sorry for Rudy there.
So we think Papi will start?
Well, they've got. I think their number one is a young guy by the name of Ivan van Sail. He unfortunately is injured for the first couple of weeks. He'll be back sort of round 3 or round 4. He's very much also a Farid Dupree type scrum half, great box kick, very tactical player, and I reckon he's probably their number one at the moment. He's got a bit more experience. He's played 1 or 2 games last year, I believe. And then there's another youngster called Andre Warner, who's also in the mix there. So Papier's number, on paper at least, number 3 in the queue is the youngster. He's played well in both warm-up games, and I could see him forcing his way in there somewhere. So.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned Nick Yaga, a joint co-captain with Birger Odendahl, so I guess he's probably one of the players in the loose forward. Who else are we looking at?
Well, you say that he's one of the players. We actually, for a while now, we can't see how he's going to get in there. From our local writers, maybe if Mitch likes him so much, he'll make a play swim. But I think on form, is the guy who's going to have to really show why he's been picked, because I think if you look at his stats last season, they weren't exactly impressive, by loose forward stats, and he might be a great leader, but you need those stats on the field. I think, if I look at it, they're getting Tim Agaba back from the sevens. And I know there might be a bit of a fight there because Mitch doesn't really want to let him go for the Commonwealth Games and the World Cup. So we sort of got a hint the other day that it's going to have to be a very good argument to let him go from Super Rugby because they've contracted him for Super Rugby. He's the one guy I reckon will probably make the number 8 spot his own eventually as it goes on because he's still not back at the Bulls just yet. I think he joins them later this week. So he's the one guy, and then Hanro Levenberg, who's more classical 8, and I'm not quite sure he's the type of 8 Mitch likes, because I think Mitch likes more mobile 8, but he's more classical 8 as well. I think he's a great talent, and I think he might seem slotted in the season more. I think he's more going to be molded into a 7 than an 8 there, and then we have Johannes Kirsten, who's nicknamed the Red Russian.
Some of his haircuts, sorry to interrupt you, but some of his haircuts last year were just ordinary, just atrocious.
There's a bit of a story behind it. The Bulls last year did a thing for charity and they all shaved their hair, and that day he was sick, so he didn't come along. So when they got on the field, it was even worse. They all shaved their hair, and he was the one guy with long hair there, so he stood out, and being a redhead, he stands out even more. So yeah, he got quite a bit of flack for that. So, but he's a guy who didn't quite have the 2017 that we'd hoped he'd had. He had a great 2016. So he needs to push it on a bit this year. I reckon he's the one guy I'd like to see really challenge him quite a bit because he's got everything. He's got the hands. He's got speed. He's got he's not classical 7. He's a lot more mobile than that as well, and he can jump in the line out as well. So he's quite a valuable youngster. Other than that, they've got two really good open siders. I've been really hoping for is a guy by the name of Rudolph Smith. He's had a really horror run. He had a great 2016, made the box side, played against the Barbarians in a non-test game, and then tore his pectoral muscle on the Monday. Which denied him his cap. And then he came back last year in a lower league game, SuperSport Challenge game, and then was on the field for 8 minutes, and he got a horrible tackle. Guy tackled him in on his knee, and he tore his knee ligament. So he's just had a bit of a horror run, but his nickname is McCaw in the team, and he's one of those open siders that can really, kill an opposition. So he's the one open side I'm really looking for. We like him a lot, the way he plays, and if he has a good run, I think he could be very good in terms of fantasy drop. But like everything, got to stay fit. They got another guy, Ruan Combrinck, and he's also been pretty good. I don't think he's as good as Smith, but both sort of very, very low on the ground type open siders. So they could cause some havoc if they come through as well.
Very interesting. Keep an eye out for that name. Let's move on to the Stormers. I'm conscious of time, taking up too much of it, Brenden, for you. 10th average points per game for SP Murray. Is he likely to be the 15 there? I'm hearing whispers of stories of Lates and a few others. Surely it's SP's job?
Well, you would think so. I think later Craig will probably give you a better indication. Obviously not being done in Cape Town, but SP's a strange character. He was at the Bulls. No, he's not the type of guy who gets along with everybody. From what I hear from players and stuff like that. But when he's in form, he's an excellent rugby player, and I think that was his spot last season. I can't see it changing too much. I think they might have 1 or 2 extra squad members, but they've got a lot of injuries down there in the Stormers at the moment. And that their depth might be tested, I think, through the season. But I can see SB taking that one. They've on the wing side, just to move on there as well. They brought in Sergio Peterson and Raymond Rule, which should make it very interesting on the wing, and they got Siabelo Sonata coming from the sevens. So they've got a lot of strike power on the outside on the wings if they get the ball to them.
Yeah. So how do they fit those in? So Rule and Sergio last year were very hot and cold, but when they were, they huge points. But are they all fit, I guess, is the first question.
Yeah, I think it's, well, it's a challenge, I suppose. Both of them score an unbelievable amount of tries, but they both are this type of wingers whose defense is maybe a bit suspect especially against the bigger, sort of Pacific Islander wingers that you tend to find in Super Rugby. So, yeah, both of them are relatively small and not great defenders. So I think that would be the first consideration, and depends who they play. But Yeah, I think both of them do a lot of, Sergio in particular does a lot of work off the ball, and he's almost like a second nine around the field as well. So he'd be my better head of rule as such. And I think Sonata has got a bit of an aura about him at the moment with the sevens, and he just scores a massive amount of tries in sevens. So I think they're hoping that that's going to come through in Super Rugby. But, the one thing I think they don't have it, last season they had a Cheslin Colby there who could also, sort of slot in and do something magical on the field, and they don't have that so much anymore. So that should be quite interesting. So.
That reverse pass of Dylan Lates, it might have been against the Chiefs off the ground, is something that we played over and over again. That's just burned in my mind.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just hope that's not the one moment he goes down for, because it'd be remembered for, because he is a hell of a talented player, and he can play anywhere in the backline as well. So, he's the type of guy I could see him slotting in at 15 as well if they're not happy with SB. But he's also a guy I'd get involved at some point in the game. He's definitely going to be part of the rotated around in the squad. And being a Bok, I think they're going to want to give him a lot of game time there. So he is a special player, and as that pass showed, I mean, he can do things that most players can't. So.
Absolutely. You alluded to it actually a little bit earlier when you were talking about the firepower out wide. Can they get the ball to them? Because looking at the Stormers team, it looks like their midfield might be their weakness. Now, I say weakness, but Damien Delende, he was the number 3 points per game in 2015. He's just fallen off a cliff. I think it was almost when he came back from Japan. He hasn't really come back as he was when he left for Japan, and he just hasn't seemed to have that spark or that firepower. He was one of the players that, like Samu Karevi, you just didn't want to play against. But is he fit at the moment?
He is fit, but I think you're right. I think he's been living on reputation for the last 2 seasons, and not just at Super Rugby level, at Springbok level as well. He's been in squads where he probably didn't deserve to be there, and because of what he's done in the past. Now, I can understand coaches doing that, so it happens at times, but I think this is a season he's got to show definitely what he's capable of, and, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think he needs to remind people why he's good, and if he does, the Stormers will have a great season. If he doesn't, I think they're going to struggle, because when he plays badly, unfortunately, it's not very nice to watch.
No, it stagnates that backline quite a bit, doesn't it, when it gets there? E.W. Villiam was quite good last season coming in there, but they've just brought back JJ Engelbrecht as well. So do we think it's probably still going to be E.W.'s job, or where do we go?
I think E.W. Villiam will still be there. I think I spoke to JJ when he came back, and because he was at the Bulls before, and he's sort of in the twilight of his career. He sort of he wants to come back to South Africa and play sort of the last season or two. So I think he's more a squad player for them, and I think you'll probably see him come in and out. I don't think he's a front line, or not at this stage, unless something goes wrong. But I think they're going to stick with EW, and I think he is the rising star. He's big, he's strong, he's a type of 13 you want. He scores quite a few tries as well, so I think they'll stick with him. I think he's going to have a pretty good season as well.
Fly half was an interesting case, because last season Damien Willems was top 5 overall on average points per game, and he showed why he's seen as this up-and-comer in South Africa rugby. He's likely to be the starting 10 now with the Jean-Luc Duplessis injury, right? Yeah, and Rob Dupree gone as well. I mean, Rob Dupree had a great run at the end of last year, won them the Currie Cup, and he's quite a big loss, I think, for them as well. I think Damien's still young, but he should be the starting. They've got a bit of a problem at Flav. They don't have much depth there. So, especially with Jean-Luc also out as such. So, he's a talented player. He's got all the attributes to become an international 10, and he's an exciting player to watch. But Super Rugby is a step up, so it's going to be interesting to see how he makes it. I think he can, but I don't think he's going to be given the sort of the grace that other players sort of get to ease themselves into the competition. So we'll pretty quickly see how good he is in these things. But he's a real talent. So I reckon he could make it. But they got a bit of problems in depth there. So with the Jean-Luc Duplessis injury, do we have an update? Last I heard, it was a bit of an unknown. Is he gone to Switzerland too? Not that we've heard of, but
I don't know. I haven't heard an update yet, and I'll be very honest. It is a worry because he's also a guy who's seen as a big talent as well. And, he tends to have injury problems quite a bit as well. So I haven't heard anything yet. I'm hoping, obviously, for them for a good one. But I think Craig will probably tell you a bit more about being a bit closer to them.
Okay, cool. In the loose forwards, so Nizam Carr's come back from Wasps overseas as well. Khaleesi and Notche. And I guess they've got is it Cobus Visa or what's his name? It's not Cobus Visa. There's another young kid as well in there.
Yeah. In Cobus Visa, and there's, what's his name now? There's another kid as well, yeah. But they've got a good bunch of young loose forwards coming up there as well, and that Cobus Visa is not bad as well. He's a special kid. He's also just young. Needs to grow into the mold as well. And I think you'll see they might lose Notche to the Sevens team because he's with them at the moment. And with the Commonwealth Games coming up, and depending on what happens with Timagaba and Kwagga Smith, you could see him probably wanting to go to the Commonwealth Games as well. Whether they'll let him go is an interesting one. But same with Siabela Sonata. But I think he's set his eyes on the Sevens now as well, so they might lose him during the season. Nizam Carr, of course, he had a great season. I think it was at Wasps, and just kept on reading all these articles about how wonderful he was, etc. So I think he might be lured back there in a while as well. So you might see him there as well. Kobus van Dijk is Van Dijk. I get always mixed up with the two. The one's the dark swinger, the other one's the loose forward at the Stormers. He's also a classical 7, jumps in the line out. Yeah, he's a hard-working youngster as well, and great squad guy to have as well. So he's another guy to have a look for. He played quite a bit in the Currie Cup for them as well, so I think we might see quite a bit more of him in Super Rugby.
Very good. Those three, Khan, Khaleesi and Notche, very good average points per game as well. So if you want middle of the road kind of loose forwards, they're not top tier, but they're in that next tier down. Look at matchups, go with them as well. Front row, how do you think they'll fare this year? Any ball carriers in there we need to look at?
Yeah, they've got a bit of. I mean, the injury to Frans Malherbe is quite bad as well. So somebody told me it's one of those. It might be career threatening. I'm hoping that's not the case, and you never want to see that for a player. But there are some question marks about his fitness this year, and they've just lost Wilco Lowe in the preseason this past weekend with the injury as well, and that looks like a couple of weeks out. So there's some questions in that front row. I think Wilco was there. I think he'd be a good bet. He's a good ball carrier, great scrummer. They've got Bongi and Bonambi, who's a hard-working too as well, and maybe sometimes doesn't get the credit that he deserves for the amount of work he does, but he's everywhere on the field as well. Not your flashiest player, but a hard worker as well. So I don't know. The JC Janssen van Rensburg will be probably their loose head. Not the greatest ball carrier, but strong scrummager as well. So although apparently it didn't go that well in the preseason game, so there is a bit of a question mark over the scrum. And I think it'd be interesting to watch, but I think they might have problems in depth there. And that's what, in fact, Mitch was telling me as well. They've got great line speed, great hand speed in the back line, but their question mark is going to be the forwards. If they can get a pack together, they can give them enough good ball.
Yeah, right. Okay, very cool. All right, let's. Looking at the time, we've probably run over a little bit for you, so much appreciated. We've also run out a little bit of time for poor old Craig to jump on, but not to worry. We'll see if we can do something a little bit different with South Africa Rugby Mag a little bit down the line. Brenden, your YouTube channel going well by the look of it. We always jump on, have a look at the press conference. It's nice.
Yeah, and hoping to do a bit more, put myself on camera. It's a bit of a difficult one when you're not used to being on camera, but probably see a bit more opinion on there this year as well. And if anybody wants to subscribe, unfortunately YouTube has changed everything now. You got to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm on about 740 something at the moment, so it's going well. It's been interesting, and I've got a lot of good reaction. I'm enjoying it. So if you want to see the best, sort of raw South African teams, news about them and coaches talking and what's going on around here, feel free to join. Yeah, the YouTube channel's Brenden Nel. So yeah.
No, look, that's absolutely cracking. I know for a fact that this is one of the podcasts that everyone listens to. They love it. They get a lot of detail out of you, Brenden. So even if they don't watch your YouTube channel and they don't feel like doing, just go and subscribe. Please do. We get great stuff out of it, but I know, as you say, YouTube have changed their rules and you need to get to that 1,000 now. So hopefully give them a bit of a push. And I know you guys get something out of it, so please just help them along there.
If something not covering or something you got your listeners want to find out about, feel free. I'm on Twitter. You guys can drop me a line and I'll do my best to help them out wherever I can.
Yeah, very, very accessible. We can't thank you enough. Much appreciated, Brenden. Good luck for the season.
Thanks, mate. I hope it's a good one. I hope for you guys as well.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Quick reminder how to contact us. You can follow us on Twitter at FantasyRugDraft or drop us a note at support@fantasyrugbydraft.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson. LT Repeater.
What a bust here by Christian Collins. Plenty of support and what a